Psychotherapist, a scary true fake therapy horror story. Narrator, Wendy McCandy. Editor, revision and filtering, Fridge Reaver. Zero dull, daft and boring in the story. Background music, www.tabletopaudio.com. Gwenda's memories. A certain sort of misanthropes walk among us wearing masks of normalcy, hiding darkness so profound it defies comprehension. Social predators who are too often glorified. The person you trust with your darkest thoughts, your deepest fears. What happens when they're the masterminds of your destruction? I found out in a locked office on a Tuesday afternoon when my therapist decided to tell me the truth. My name is Gwenda, and for 2 years, I believed therapy was saving my life. Looking back now, I realized it was ending piece by piece, and I was paying him $200 an hour to watch it happen. I started seeing Dr. Bryce Keaton in April 2020. I just moved to Seattle for a new job at a tech startup, and I was struggling with anxiety and some relationship issues from my past. A friend recommended Dr. Keaton, saying he'd been practicing for over 15 years, had stellar reviews, and specialized in cognitive behavioral therapy. His office was in a renovated brownstone on Ruglicker Plaza, one of those places with exposed brick and plants, everywhere designed to make you feel safe and comfortable. Our first session felt like a breakthrough. Dr. Bryce Keaton was in his late 40s, graying at the temples with kind eyes, and this way of listening that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. He asked thoughtful questions and didn't rush me. When I cried talking about my ex-boyfriend's emotional abuse, he handed me tissues and said, "You deserved better than that." You still do. I left that first session feeling hopeful for the first time in months. I scheduled weekly appointments. Then, when things got particularly rough, a few months in, we moved to twice a week. Dr. Keaton said intensive therapy would help me break through the patterns faster. I trusted him completely. Over the next 6 months, my life improved dramatically. I felt more confident at work. I started dating someone new, a software engineer named Kyle. I'd met through a running group. My anxiety seemed manageable. Dr. Keaton taught me coping mechanisms, challenged my negative thought patterns, pointed out emotional irrationality spoiling my plans, and verified my little victories. I told everyone I knew that therapy had changed my life. Then things started falling apart in ways I couldn't understand. Kyle and I had been dating for 4 months when he unexpectedly broke things off. He said he felt like I was too intense and moving too fast, which confused me because I'd been deliberately taking things slow based on Dr. Keaton's advice. When I brought it up in therapy, Dr. Keaton asked probing questions about Kyle's behavior, suggesting maybe he had commitment issues or was emotionally unavailable. "You're doing everything right," he assured me. "Sometimes people just aren't capable of matching our emotional maturity." 2 months later, my closest friend in Seattle, Melissa, stopped returning my calls. When I finally cornered her at a coffee shop, she said I'd been acting strange and she needed space. Strange how I pressed her. She mentioned things I'd supposedly said to her, criticisms, judgments that I had zero memory of saying. I felt dumbfounded. In therapy, Dr. Keaton suggested Melissa might be projecting her own insecurities onto me. "Real friends don't abandon you when you're growing," he said. My job started suffering next. My manager, a woman named Oakley, who'd previously praised my work, began documenting performance issues, missed deadlines, incomplete reports, and poor communication with team members, although I knew I'd completed. That work, I had files, timestamps, and emails. When I tried to show her, the files were corrupted or missing. It couldn't explain it. I started doubting my memory. Was I losing my mind? Dr. Keaton increased our sessions to 3 times a week. He said I was experiencing a psychological crisis and needed additional support. I was terrified and grateful he was there to help me through it. My insurance had stopped covering the sessions months ago, so I was paying out of my pocket, nearly $2,500 a month. But what else could I do? I was falling apart. My family back in South Carolina grew concerned. My sister Jenna called weekly, begging me to come home for a visit. But every time I planned a trip, something would happen. A work emergency. A sudden panic attack. Car trouble. Dr. Keaton suggested my subconscious might be sabotaging the visits because going home would trigger old family dynamics. "You're doing important work here," he said. "Don't let guilt pull you backward." By month 18, I'd lost my job and my apartment. I couldn't afford rent plus therapy and most of my social connections. I moved into a cheaper apartment and was living on savings and credit cards. The only constant in my life was Dr. Keaton. He'd become more than my therapist. He was my only friend, my only support system. He sometimes didn't even charge me for sessions, saying he wanted to help me through this difficult time. "You're one of my most important clients," he told me once. "Your healing matters to me personally." I scheduled what I thought would be my final session in September 2019. I decided to move back to South Carolina to try to rebuild my life near family. I'd lost everything in Seattle, and I needed a fresh start. I planned to tell Dr. Keaton in person and thank him for everything he'd done, even though my life had somehow gotten worse instead of better. I arrived at his office on a Tuesday afternoon. The waiting room was empty, which was unusual for a 2 p.m. appointment. I could hear classical music playing softly from inside his office. When he opened the door and gestured me in, something felt different. His usual warm smile was replaced with something else, anticipation maybe, almost excitement. I sat down in my usual chair, the worn leather one facing his desk. He closed the door, and I heard something I'd never heard before, the distinct click of a lock turning. "Why did you lock the door?" I asked, my heart rate already climbing. "Because we're going to have a different kind of session today," he said, settling into his chair. "This is our last session. I think it's time you knew the truth." My mouth went dry. "The truth about what?" He leaned back, fingers steepled, studying me with an expression I couldn't read. "Gwenda, I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. I've been running an experiment for the past 2 years, and you've been my most successful subject to date." I asked, "What are you talking about?" My voice came out as a whisper. He reached for his laptop and turned it to face me. On the screen was a file labeled with my name. "I've been systematically destroying your life," he said matter-of-factly. "Your relationship with Kyle, your friendship with Melissa, your job, your family connections, I engineered all of it." I stared at him, unable to process the words. This had to be some therapeutic technique, a test. "That's not funny," I replied. "It's not meant to be," he chuckled. He clicked through files on the screen. "Let me show you. See this? This is the email I sent to Kyle from a fake account pretending to be your ex-boyfriend, warning him that you were obsessive and had stalked your previous partners. I knew he'd pull away without telling you why. And here, this is the series of text messages I sent to Melissa from a burner phone, posing as you, saying terrible things about her new girlfriend. She believed they came from your number because I cloned it. My hands were shaking. You can't. That's illegal. That's abusive." He replied, "It's also remarkably easy once you know what you're doing." He scrolled through more files, his tone conversational like he was showing me vacation photos. "Your job was a bit more complex. I needed access to your company's system, which I got through a contact in IT, someone who owed me a favor. I could access your files remotely, delete things, and corrupt documents. I even sent emails from your account to make it look like you were being insubordinate. I felt like I was floating outside my body, watching this happen to someone else. Why would you do this?" I inquired, "Because I wanted to see if I could," he said. He closed the laptop and looked at me directly. "I wanted to understand the mechanics of psychological dependence. How completely could I isolate someone? How thoroughly could I make them dependent on me as their only source of support? What's the threshold where a person stops trusting their own perception of reality?" I snapped back. "I trusted you." Tears were streaming down my face now. He gloated in a way only a narcissist can. "I told you everything. And I used everything you told me." He stood and walked to a filing cabinet, pulling out a thick folder. Every vulnerability you shared, every fear, every insecurity, I weaponized it. When you told me about your father's alcoholism, I used that to suggest you were seeing patterns that weren't there, making you doubt your judgment. When you mentioned your history of anxiety, I deliberately induced panic attacks through subtle suggestions and then positioned myself as the solution. He dropped the folder on the desk between us. Inside were transcripts, pages and pages of our sessions, annotated with notes in red ink. I've been recording every session from the beginning, not for clinical purposes, but for research. I've analyzed every word, every pause, every emotional reaction. You were extraordinarily responsive to suggestions, Gwenda, one of my best subjects. Subjects. The word came out choked. You are ignorant, sob story number 20, he said, sitting back down. I've already done this 19 times before you. It started almost accidentally with a client 10 years ago. I noticed how easy it was to influence her decisions, to shape her reality. I wondered how far I could take it, so I experimented. With some clients, I only push a little, just enough to test boundaries. Others, like you, I go all the way, full isolation. Complete dependence, total reality distortion. I couldn't breathe, the room was spinning. The others, what happened to them? Various outcomes. 3 of them ended up hospitalized in psychiatric facilities. 2 moved back to wherever they came from, basically broken. Most of them just faded, lost in their confusion, probably still wondering what happened to their lives. He paused, watching my face. 1 killed herself. That was unfortunate, but the data was fascinating. I lunged for the door, but he was faster. He stepped in front of it, not threatening, just blocking. I'm not going to hurt you, Gwenda. That's not the point of this. I'm telling you because the experiment is complete. You're about to move away, and I wanted you to know what really happened. I wanted to see your face when you realized that everything you thought was your fault. Every failure, every loss, it was me. Let me out. I was sobbing now, barely able to form words. Please. In a moment, I just need you to understand something. His voice was calm, almost gentle, which made it infinitely worse. You'll leave here and you'll tell people what I did. You'll go to the police, to the licensing board, to whoever will listen. But here's the beautiful part. You won't be able to prove any of it. You just showed me. I showed you files that don't exist anywhere but on this laptop, which will be destroyed before you reach your car. The burner phones are long gone. The recordings are stored on an encrypted server with no traceable connection to me. My contact in computer security was paid in cash and has no idea what the access was used for. Every piece of evidence will disappear. He moved away from the door, pulled out his phone, and showed me the screen. He was deleting files as I watched. And here's the thing. You've been seeing me for 2 years for severe anxiety, depression, and reality distortion. I have comprehensive clinical notes documenting your deteriorating mental state, your paranoid ideation, and your increasing detachment from reality. If you accuse me of this, I'll simply show those notes. Who do you think people will believe? A respected therapist with 15 years of impeccable practice, or a mentally ill woman who's lost her job, her friends, her apartment, and is now making outlandish accusations? He opened the door. You're free to go, Gwenda. I hope you find what you're looking for in South Carolina. Oh, and one more thing. You never really had severe anxiety. I diagnosed you with it in our second session to justify the medication I prescribed. Turns out, when you give someone anti-anxiety medication they don't actually need, it can create real anxiety symptoms. Paradoxical, isn't it? I ran. I don't remember getting down the stairs or to my car. I drove to the police station and tried to file a report, but just like he said, I had no evidence. The files he'd shown me didn't exist. My phone records showed texts to Melissa that I didn't send, but I couldn't prove I didn't send them. The police took a report, but said without evidence of a crime, there wasn't much they could do. I filed a complaint with the Tampa Bay University and the Florida State Department of Health, which licenses therapists. They investigated for 6 months. Dr. Keaton provided all his clinical notes, which painted me as an unstable patient with paranoid delusions. The complaint was dismissed due to a lack of evidence. I moved back to South Carolina. I tried to rebuild, but here's what Dr. Keaton didn't account for. I'm not his only victim, henceforth, I'm not alone. I started a blog sharing my story, and 4 other women contacted me with scarily similar experiences, different details, same pattern, isolation, manipulation. Reality distortion, and the same cold confession at the end, the same assurance that we couldn't prove anything. We're working on vigilante terms now. We will never get justice in a courtroom. Still, I'm telling my story everywhere I can, because maybe victim 21 is sitting in an office right now, thinking therapy is saving her life, not realizing it's a fatal naivety. If you're in therapy and things keep getting worse instead of better, if you're losing relationships and opportunities in ways you can't explain, if your therapist is the only person telling you that you're not crazy while everything around you crumbles, trust your gut feeling. Get a second opinion. Record your sessions. If it's legal in your state, protect yourself. Because the person who's supposed to help you heal can be the one making you sick instead. The end.